The first night Jennifer didn't come home didn't start like an emergency. It slipped in slow, silent, and rotten, changing everything before I even knew something was wrong. My name is Tyler Morrison. I'm 38, born and raised in Columbus, Ohio, and I've made a quiet life out of the things most people overlook. Routine, predictability, the kind of structure that keeps a man steady. I work as a sales associate at a regional equipment supplier. Nothing glamorous, nothing that earns applause, but steady. I clock in, I do my job, and I come home to the house my parents left me. The place still smells like the wood polish my father used on Sundays and the lavender my mother planted around the porch. Living there keeps them close in a way I never talk about. My mornings are the same every day. Up at 6:15. Coffee from the same chipped mug. The local weather is low. A quiet drive through a city that wakes up slower than it pretends to. That rhythm kept me level through every good year and every hard one. It was the foundation under the marriage I built with Jennifer. My wife for 8 years. A woman whose ambition impressed me long before her smile ever did. She worked in finance, climbed fast, always moving, always planning. I admired that. I thought marriage worked best when one person was the anchor and the other was the sail. Turns out I didn't know a damn thing. That Thursday started the same as any other. I left work at 5, stopped for groceries, cooked dinner for 2 like I always did. Jennifer texted that she had a late meeting. That wasn't unusual. Her job lived on deadlines and half-crisis emails. I ate alone, cleaned the dishes, and figured she'd walk through the door before 10. 10 passed, then 11, then midnight. At first, it didn't even feel like panic. Just a quiet irritation. A slow, steady checking of the clock. I sent a text. Everything okay? No answer. I tried to distract myself. Cleaned the kitchen counter again. Folded laundry that didn't need folding. But the longer the house stayed silent, the louder my thoughts got. By 1 in the morning, I was calling. No ring, straight to voicemail. That's when something inside me tightened. Not fear. Something colder. Something that didn't match the man I believed myself to be. Jennifer had never stayed out like this. Never gone dark on me. Not even in our worst arguments. By 2, I wasn't pretending anymore. I walked circles through that house, past family photos I didn't look at, past the doorway to the bedroom we shared. Every room felt bigger than it had the night before, like the walls had pulled back without warning. I checked my phone again. Nothing. I tried calling a second time, then a third, then a fourth. Straight to voicemail. I'd never felt so powerless without anything technically being wrong. By 3, I was sitting on the edge of the bed, staring at the hallway like it might give me an answer. I kept telling myself there had to be a reason. A flat tire, a dead phone, an all-night work emergency. Something normal, something boring, something that fit into the life I believed we had. But the later it got, the more the excuses sounded like lies I was feeding myself just to keep breathing evenly. By 4, I stopped moving altogether. Just lay there on my back, staring at the ceiling I'd repainted last summer. The one Jennifer said made the room feel calm. Funny how calm can flip into dread without changing color. I didn't sleep. Not a second. When the sun finally came through the blinds, it didn't feel like morning. It felt like a verdict. Jennifer still wasn't home. No text, no call, no explanation. And in that quiet moment, my house still, my phone cold in my hand, I felt something I didn't want to name yet, something I didn't have a definition for. But later, looking back, I'd realized that was the moment the life I knew ended. Not with a shout, not with a fight, with silence. The next morning, I wasn't really awake. I was just a man whose body refused to shut down even after a full night spent staring at the ceiling. My eyes felt like sandpaper. My thoughts were a dull roar I couldn't name. I reached for my phone out of instinct, hoping for anything. An apology, an excuse, even a lie I could recognize. What I got was a text that read like someone taking a sledgehammer to the floor beneath me. I'm not coming back. I want a divorce. No explanation. No punctuation besides the period at the end like she was signing off a memo. 8 years boiled down to 10 words and a period. At first, everything inside me just went quiet. Like my brain hit a switch. No anger. No heartbreak. Just a stillness so sharp it felt surgical. My thumb hovered over the screen, waiting for more, but nothing came. I tried calling her. One ring. Then voicemail. I tried again. Blocked. I sat on the edge of the bed with the phone in my hand, staring at that message until the screen dimmed. The house felt bigger than it ever had, empty, cold, unforgiving. My parents' pictures seemed to watch me from the hallway wall, like they were waiting for me to make sense of what had just happened. I didn't. That Friday passed in a fog. I went to work because I didn't know what else to do. I didn't say anything to anyone. My coworkers talked around me like I was a ghost. I don't even remember driving home. I just remember walking into my house and feeling the silence hit me like a physical thing. I didn't cook, didn't shower, didn't talk. I lay on the bed with my shoes still on and stared at the ceiling again. The same ceiling from the night before, but now it felt like it belonged to someone else. Saturday, I didn't get out of bed until noon. I kept replaying the last few months in my head, searching for something. Some crack I missed, some sign I ignored. But there was nothing. No fights, no distance, no cold shoulder. Jennifer had been normal. Maybe I'm tired, maybe more stressed than usual. But normal. That's what made the message feel unreal. If someone asked me what went wrong, I wouldn't have had a single answer. By evening, the house felt swollen with quiet. The kind that presses on your ears and makes your own breathing sound too loud. I got up long enough to make toast I didn't eat, then went back to bed. Every time my phone buzzed, my heart kicked, only for it to be a bank alert or work notification. Never her. Sunday was worse. There was no denying the truth anymore. She wasn't coming home. She wasn't explaining. She didn't want a conversation, a fight, or a goodbye. She wanted out, and she didn't care how it landed on me. I tried to tell myself I was fine, that I could handle it. But there were moments, quiet ones, where my chest felt tight enough to crack. I didn't cry, not because I was trying to be strong, but because everything in me was numb. Crying requires emotion. I was running in shock. I kept thinking back to the routine I'd built. The steady mornings, the quiet evenings. The meals were cooked for two. It all felt like I'd been living in a house made of paper without knowing it. One text and the whole thing folded. By Sunday night, I finally admitted something to myself. Something I didn't say out loud. I didn't lose a marriage. I lost the reality I believed in. The difference mattered. And as I lay there in the dark, the house swallowing every sound I made, I understood with a cold clarity. Nothing about this was coming back. Nothing about this was accidental. And nothing about the woman I married was as predictable as I thought. The week after Jennifer's message moved like a slow bruise, dark, sore, and spreading. I went to work because that's what you do when everything else slips out from under you. You hold on to the few things still standing. I kept my head down, kept quiet, and let people assume whatever they wanted. Most didn't ask anyway. On Wednesday afternoon, I was in the break room making coffee I didn't even taste anymore when Marcus Caldwell walked in. Marcus was in his 50s. Weathered face, steady eyes, the kind of man who wore his mistakes openly because hiding them took too much energy. We weren't close, but we respected each other. He studied me for a second. "You look like somebody dropped a cinder block on your week," he said. I didn't want to talk, but something in me was too tired to deflect. "My wife left." Text message. No explanation. Marcus didn't react with surprise. Just nodded once, slow, like he'd seen this movie before. He set his coffee down. "She says why?" "No," I stared into my cup. "I just want a divorce." Marcus let out a breath through his nose. "Son, nobody leaves out of nowhere unless someone else is involved." The words hit harder than I expected. Not like a punch. More like a nail hammered into a board I didn't want to look at. I shook my head. "No. Jennifer's not like that." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "You sure?" I thought the same thing once. Turns out I was wrong. A lot of men are. I didn't answer. Not because I agreed, but because part of me was suddenly afraid to argue. He clapped a hand on my shoulder. "If you want peace, find the truth." Everything else is noise. He walked out, leaving me alone with a thought I didn't want and couldn't unhear. That night, I sat on my couch, the TV playing something I wasn't watching. The living room was dim, the air still, the house too big again. I kept replaying Marcus's words. Someone else is involved. Felt dirty to even consider it. Accusatory. Desperate. But the longer I sat there, the more the thought swelled like a bruise under the skin. Jennifer didn't come home. Jennifer blocked me. Jennifer ended our marriage in 10 words. Those weren't the actions of a woman having a crisis. They were the actions of someone who had already moved on. By 10 p.m., I was pacing the living room. I didn't want to be this man, the suspicious one, the one imagining shadows. But suspicion wasn't imagination. It was logical. Cold, unwelcome logic. That's when I did something I never thought I'd do. I opened my laptop and searched for private investigators in Columbus. The list felt like a personal failure. Like hiring one meant admitting I'd lost control. But something deeper pushed me forward. Something colder than heartbreak. Something sharper than sadness. I needed the truth. I couldn't rebuild anything without it. I found a name that came up more than once. Calvin Davis, Discreet Investigative Services. Clean reviews. Professional tone. Nothing flashy. I stared at his contact form for a long time before finally typing my name, number, and a short sentence. I need to know why my wife left. I hit submit before I could talk myself out of it. The next morning, Davis called. His voice was calm, measured, like someone who'd heard every kind of story a person could unravel with. We set a meeting for that afternoon in his office above a small insurance agency. Walking into that office felt wrong, like stepping into a version of my life I never imagined. The walls were lined with filing cabinets. No photos, no warmth, just a desk, a chair, and a man who studied me with neutral eyes. "Tell me everything," Davis said. I did, quietly, directly, without emotion. He nodded through the details. Asked for Jennifer's full name, workplace, phone number. Asked if I suspected someone. I paused. I don't know. But Marcus's words echoed anyway. Davis wrote a few notes, then closed his pad. Give me 10 days. 10 days. It sounded like a sentence. Those days crawled by. My routine became hollow. Wake up. Work. Come home. Stare at walls that felt like they were waiting for judgment. I didn't talk to friends. Didn't tell the family. Didn't reach out to Jennifer. I didn't want anything except the truth. Every night, I lay in bed feeling the weight of something I couldn't name yet. Not grief. Not anger. Something colder. Anticipation. Like a storm building behind my ribs. I knew one thing for certain. When those 10 days ended, my life wasn't going to look the same. 10 days passed like a slow march. Nothing dramatic. No sudden revelations. Just hours stacking on hours until the weight of waiting felt heavier than whatever truth was coming. When Davis finally called, his voice was as calm as ever. Mr. Morrison, you'll want to come in. Now we need to talk. Now I found something. Just you'll want to come in. Professional men know how to cushion a blow. Davis didn't bother. I drove to the cafe he suggested. A quiet place tucked behind a pharmacy. The kind of spot where conversations disappear before anyone can overhear them. He was already there, sitting in a booth with a brown envelope on the table between his hands. The envelope looked ordinary. That made it worse. Tyler, he said, nodding. No small talk. No easing in. He slid the envelope toward me like it contained a verdict. It's all in there. I stared at it for a moment. Felt heavier than paper should. My fingers didn't shake, but something in my chest tightened as I opened it. The first photo was Jennifer, laughing, the head tilted back in a way I hadn't seen in a long time. The man beside her was someone I recognized. Richard Callahan, her supervisor, married, father of 2. My jaw didn't drop. My breath didn't hitch. Nothing dramatic. Just a cold shift inside me, like a floor tile snapping into place. I flipped through the rest. Dinner dates, hotel entrances, hands where wedding rings should have meant something, printed screenshots of messages, plans, excuses, little lies dressed up as work emergencies. Words like "I miss you already." Words like "soon." Just a little longer. Words like "Tyler won't suspect a thing." Somewhere around the fourth page, disbelief left my body. Just walked out. And something colder took its place, clarity. I didn't speak for a long moment. Davis didn't rush me. When I finished, I slid the photos back into the envelope. The silence between us felt like the only honest thing in the room. "How long?" I asked. "6 months," he said. "Maybe more." Hard to say exactly. It didn't surprise me. I thought it would. But the moment he said it, my mind rearranged itself around a new truth. The woman I married had been gone long before she disappeared. I nodded once. "Send me the digital copies. I'll email them tonight." I stood up. Not fast. Not angry. Just done. As I walked to the door, Davis spoke again. "I've seen men break over less than this." I looked back at him. "I'm not breaking." He nodded like he believed me. Maybe he did. Outside, the air felt different. Lighter. Not better, just honest. I sat in my truck for a long time, the envelope in my lap, the world moving around me like nothing had changed. But everything had. Jennifer's betrayal wasn't a mystery anymore. It was a timeline, a choice, a path she'd walked with another man while pretending to share a life with me. There's a kind of hurt that burns hot. This wasn't that. This was ice. By the time I drove home, I knew what had to happen next. Not arguments. Not pleading. Closure didn't come from talking to someone who'd already rewritten the truth in her head. Came from action. That night, I sat at my dining table with the envelope open beside me and started writing 3 new ones of my own. One addressed to HR at Jennifer's company. One addressed to Amanda Callahan, Richard's wife. And one addressed to my lawyer, with every piece of evidence neatly organized. No theatrics. No revenge fantasy. Just consequences. When I sealed the last envelope, a calm settled over me. A real one. Not denial. Not numbness. Something closer to ownership. The truth hadn't set me free yet, but it had handed me the tools. And I intended to use them. I mailed the 3 envelopes on a Monday morning before work. No ceremony. No hesitation. Just walked into the post office, slid them across the counter, and felt something inside me settle when the clerk stamped them. By Wednesday, the first aftershock hit. HR called Richard and Jennifer into separate meetings. I wasn't there, but I could imagine the room, sterile, bright, no room to hide. A supervisor confronting 2 employees with time-stamped photos and messages they thought were private. They were both suspended pending investigation. That was the company's language. What it really meant was, your world is about to get small. Amanda Callahan, Richard's wife, received her envelope the same day. She emailed me once. Just one line. "Thank you for telling me what everyone else protected." No anger at me. No questions. Just a woman finding out the truth and choosing her own path. By Friday, Richard was packing up his office. Someone from the building texted Marcus, and Marcus told me. Jennifer was suspended too. No one said it directly, but the rumors moved fast. Professional misconduct, inappropriate relationship, violation of ethics guidelines. The fallout was swift. Friday night, I walked into my house with takeout in my hand and noticed something strange. Quiet satisfaction. Not joy. Not revenge. Just the cold relief of knowing the truth had done its job. After dinner, I started reclaiming my space. I pulled Jennifer's clothes from the closet. Every blouse. Every pair of heels she swore were work necessities. I packed them into boxes without pausing. No nostalgia. No bitterness. Just clearing space that belonged to me again. I took our wedding photos off the walls. The frames felt lighter than they used to. Maybe they always were. By the time I carried everything to the garage, the house looked cleaner. Wider. Like it had been holding its breath for months and finally exhaled. That night, as I settled into the silence, my phone lit up. Jennifer. The first call since the day she vanished. I watched the screen ring. Once. Twice. A dozen times. I didn't answer. Not because I was trying to hurt her. Not because I wanted her to feel ignored. but because there was nothing left for me to say to a woman who had already delivered her goodbye in a 10-word text. She called again and again. I let it ring. On Saturday morning, the news spread further. Both she and Richard were officially terminated. HR didn't waste time. Neither did the board. No corporation risks scandal over two people who thought they were untouchable. Their reputations didn't just take a hit. They imploded. By afternoon, Jennifer sent a text. "Tyler, please. I need to talk." I didn't respond. This wasn't cruelty. This was boundary. This was choosing myself over chaos. By Sunday, everything that had been built on their affair, career, stability, secrecy, was crumbling fast. I could feel the collapse from a distance, like thunder moving across a valley. And for the first time since the night she didn't come home, I felt steady. Not healed, not whole, steady. Because the truth had finally caught up. And I didn't have to chase anything anymore. The week after Jennifer lost her job, I thought the silence would stretch on forever. Didn't. It snapped. The first time she came to the house, it was a Thursday evening. I just finished sweeping out the garage when I heard the knock. Light, uncertain. The kind of knock someone uses when they're not sure they're welcome. I opened the front curtain just enough to see her on the porch. Hair messy, eyes swollen, clothes wrinkled like she'd slept in them. She said my name through the door, voice soft, almost rehearsed. "Tyler, please. Can we talk?" My hand stayed on the deadbolt, but I didn't turn it. "No," I said, calm, even. She pressed her forehead to the door. "I made a mistake. I know that now. Please." I didn't raise my voice. Didn't get dramatic. "Leave, Jennifer." She waited. Maybe she thought I'd crack. But after a minute, the silence between us answered for me. She walked back to her car, shoulders slumped, and drove away. The second time she came, it wasn't soft. It was Sunday afternoon. I was cleaning the kitchen when the pounding started. Fast, angry. The sound of desperation trying to disguise itself as authority. "Open the damn door," she shouted. I didn't move toward it. I stayed where I was, wiping the counter like her voice wasn't echoing through the hallway. "You ruined my life," she yelled. "Richard won't talk to me. HR won't tell me anything. I lost everything, Tyler." I set the rag down and walked to the front of the house. Not close, just near enough to make my point. "You lost things you chose to risk," I said through the door. She kicked the bottom panel so hard the wood rattled. Then her voice broke. Not with rage this time, but raw panic. "Please, please don't do this. I don't have anywhere to go." That was the moment I understood something clearly. Her collapse wasn't mine to catch. I took out my phone. Dialed the non-emergency police line. "My ex-wife is trespassing. She's upset. I don't want this to escalate." When the patrol car pulled up, she crumbled. Went from shouting to sobbing in seconds. The officers talked to her, calm and firm, then escorted her to her car. She left without looking back. I didn't feel powerful. I didn't feel cruel. I felt grounded. A boundary is a quiet thing until someone pushes against it. The third attempt didn't come from her directly. Came through her lawyer. An email forwarded by mine. A long, emotional plea typed in formal language that didn't hide the desperation underneath. Claims that the affair wasn't what it looked like, that her job loss was punishment enough, that she hoped for mercy, that she still valued our history. My lawyer called me. "How do you want to handle this?" I didn't hesitate. "We're not negotiating," he chuckled. "So I'll respond with, offer rejected." Exactly. That was the last formal attempt. Meanwhile, word got around about Richard. He didn't leave his wife, didn't even try. Reports said he told HR Jennifer manipulated him. Told his wife Jennifer pursued him. Told everyone he could that she was the problem and he was the victim. He threw her under every bus he could find. And she let him. Jennifer's world shrank fast. People she thought were friends stopped answering. She lost her apartment. I ended up staying on a friend's couch. Job applications went nowhere. Every door that used to open for her now stayed locked. I heard about all of it secondhand, from coworkers, from snippets online, from people in town who knew someone who knew someone. I never reached out, never checked in, never corrected the stories. That wasn't my role anymore. My role, my responsibility was simple: stay steady, stay forward, let the consequences be hers. And they were, every single one. The divorce process started with the same calm that had settled over my life since Jennifer's collapse. No shouting, no bargaining, no back-and-forth games. My lawyer gathered the evidence, organized it cleanly, and laid out the terms with the precision of someone who'd seen this story play out 100 times. The house was mine, undisputed. Our accounts were simple: no kids, no shared debt. And with the proof of her affair documented down to timestamps, Jennifer had no leverage left to manufacture a fight. Her lawyer tried once, proposing mediation, hinting at emotional factors. My lawyer shut it down with 3 words: "We have evidence." It never came up again. 3 months passed like a steady march. I went to work. I came home, reorganized drawers, cleaned out rooms I hadn't touched in years. I wasn't distracting myself. I was reclaiming space, reclaiming ownership. The silence in the house changed, too. It wasn't the suffocating quiet from the night Jennifer disappeared, the kind that presses into your ribs. This silence was clean, balanced, a silence chosen, not forced. Some nights I sat in the living room with the TV off, just listening to the hum of the refrigerator, the settling of the foundation, the distant traffic. Ordinary sounds, good sounds, honest sounds. The divorce finalized on a Tuesday morning. I walked into the courthouse alone, signed the final documents at a wooden table that had probably seen decades of endings before mine. Jennifer wasn't there. She signed her copy the day before, or maybe the week before. I didn't ask. Her lawyer kept everything filtered and distant. Once the judge stamped the paperwork, the clerk handed me several pages clipped together. "That's it," she said. And it was. I stepped outside into the parking lot, the morning air crisp, the sky clear in that wide, Midwestern way. I stood there for a moment, the papers tucked under my arm, and waited for a feeling to hit me. Relief, anger, sadness. Nothing came, just a steady exhale. I drove home with the windows cracked and the radio low. No heavy thoughts, no dragging weight, just the understanding that a chapter was closed because I closed it. That night I made dinner, steak, roasted vegetables, simple things. I ate at the dining table alone without feeling alone. Afterward, I walked down the hallway and noticed something I hadn't seen in months. The house felt like mine again. Not a museum of memories. Not a graveyard for what happened. Just home. Over the next weeks, I filled my time with small things. Old hobbies I'd let gather dust. Woodworking in the garage, running in the evenings, fixing small things around the house I'd ignored during the chaos. Menial tasks, maybe, but they gave my days weight again. I cleaned the spare room and turned it into a workspace. I repainted the living room a shade darker than before, something that felt grounded. I built new routines not out of necessity but choice. Every so often, I'd hear updates about Jennifer through the grapevine. Nothing dramatic, nothing urgent, just the slow, predictable aftermath of burned bridges and vanished support systems. I didn't react to any of it. Her life wasn't my responsibility anymore. Her fallout wasn't mine to sift through. And closure didn't require her suffering, just my distance. One night, about 2 months after the divorce was finalized, I stood on the back porch watching the sun sink behind the trees. The yard was quiet. The air smelled like cut grass and warm soil. For the first time in a long time, I felt something simple but solid. Peace. Not excitement. Not triumph. Just the clean space a man earns when he stops letting chaos rent a room in his life. And that was enough. Spring settled over Columbus slowly, the way it always does. First in the smell of thawed earth, then in the crack of sunlight across the yard, then in the faint hum of lawnmowers waking up the neighborhood. I felt it in my bones more than I noticed it on the calendar. Something loosening, something letting go. One Saturday morning, I pulled out my mother's old gardening tools from the shed. Rusted handles, dull trowel, a pair of gloves worn thin at the fingertips. I stood in the yard she once kept alive with an ease I never appreciated when I was young. I wasn't doing anything symbolic. I just wanted the place to look like someone lived there again. So I started digging, turning soil, breaking up the patches that had gone hard and neglected. The work was simple, honest, a kind of clarity you can only get when your hands are busy and your mind isn't chasing ghosts. I was kneeling beside the porch, planting the first row of marigolds, when my phone buzzed in my pocket. I wiped my hands, pulled it out, and saw a name I hadn't expected. Amanda Callahan. Her text was short. Divorce finalized today. I just wanted to say thank you. You gave me the truth when nobody else would. I sat back on my heels, breathing in the scent of turned soil and fresh air. There was no sting in seeing her name, no weight in reading about her divorce. Just a quiet understanding between two people who had both been living inside someone else's lies. I typed back, "I'm glad you're free. Wishing you peace moving forward. No open door. No invitation. Just respect. Boundaries. Clean lines." She responded with a simple heart and nothing more. I slipped the phone back into my pocket and returned to the flowers. The yard looked different already. Fresh rows of color breaking up the winter gray. It reminded me of how my mother used to say that flowers were the easiest way to prove a place was cared for, even when everything else felt chaotic. The house behind me felt different too. Not empty, not echoing with old memories or old pain. Just mine. The living room I repainted had finally started to feel settled. The workspace I built in the spare room had become a place where ideas lived instead of regrets. Even the silence had changed again. This time warm, steady, the kind a man can breathe in without flinching. My routine rebuilt itself without ceremony. Morning runs, good coffee, clean counters, a life that didn't need explaining or defending. Every few weeks, I'd hear a piece of distant gossip about Jennifer. Moved in with a friend, then another friend, then rumors she was job hunting out of state. I didn't dig. I didn't care enough to. Her story wasn't my responsibility. Her consequences weren't my closure. My peace didn't depend on her downfall, just on my distance. I pressed the last flower into the soil, patting it gently, leveling the ground. When I stood, my back cracked softly and a warm breeze moved across the yard. The world didn't look new. I did. The house no longer felt like the place where a marriage ended. It felt like the place where I started telling the truth to myself mostly, about what I needed, what I deserved, what I wouldn't allow again. I stepped back, looked at the neat rows of marigolds, and felt something settle inside me. Not triumph, not revenge, not relief, just a quiet rebirth. The kind that doesn't need witnesses, the kind that doesn't need to announce itself, the kind a man earns by surviving the storm and then choosing, day by day, to build something steadier in its place. And for the first time in a long time, the life in front of me felt exactly like it should. Mine.
Subscribe and stay one step ahead of cheaters. And trust me, the next story makes this one look like a fairy tale.